Hey, warmer friendly hello! Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We have an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined here in a few minutes by one of our good friends. As Isaac Bourne, who does such great work over at Mid-Major Madness, is going to be joining me. We have to get his thoughts on all the hoopla that we're seeing in college basketball right now with these court cases. We have to chat with him about some of the players that are on the move. Teams that have really benefited from all these court cases, the teams that might be in a little bit of, shall we say, ruin because of it as well, with a team like Central Florida losing out on Jermichael Stillwell, and what we can expect moving forward in a chaotic landscape in college basketball, and which teams may or may not be able to find some chemistry as well. Hopefully we can throw in there a question or two about some of the mid-major teams that he is feeling bullish/bearish on as well. And then in the second segment, we did see a little bit of movement in college basketball. A few guys signed with teams, and Gonzaga keeps spending, so we are going to be chatting about that. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. And I do beg with you, plead with you, send in these Twitter/X questions. It allows me to know what you all want to be hearing here in the off season, how to best be able to get you guys prepared for what I think is going to be the greatest college basketball season of all time. And we're going to have a lot of fun here in the coming weeks and coming months because it has been an absolutely insane last few weeks in college basketball. Conference previews, you're going to be getting more of those as well. The OVC is going to be coming tomorrow. We've got the Northeast Conference coming relatively soon, and then we get into the Patriot League. I'm trying to focus more on conferences that are very unlikely to be impacted by these court cases, so that's a priority right now, and the priority is always making sure that things are profitable all 365 days a year, and on leap year 366 days, and we're going to keep the great guests going all throughout the offseason. Isaac Bourne, he's joined me once before on the podcast here in the offseason. He does a tremendous job over at Mid-Major Madness. I know that he does a lot with regards to the high school sports scene over there in Kentucky as well, so he does an incredible job taking a look at this landscape of college basketball. Follow him on the old Twitter/X at his first and last name, Isaac Bourne. That is ISAACBOURNE, an underscore after that. And Isaac, it is always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Well, glad to be here, Greg, and I'm excited to talk a little bit more about some college basketball. I mean, it's August, but I'm just so ready for the season to be here already. But looks like some of these coaches might not be.
No, not at all. There's a lot of teams out there that the rosters are still TBD. I'm looking at you, Gonzaga, who have signed 2 guys in the last 72 hours. But that said, just how do you look at the landscape of college basketball right now? Because typically by now, the roster construction is done. We're doing our way too early top 25s, projector our finishes for conferences. And all of a sudden, now we've got a second wave in the transfer portal and a whole bunch of guys that we didn't think were going to be playing college basketball this year, playing college basketball.
Yeah, and honestly, head coach Mark Few, he's probably thanking the Lord that he has the ability to bring in some great guys. They lost their point guard earlier in the offseason, and people were thinking, how was Gonzaga going to fill that hole? They were thinking some players were going to have to go away when Mario St. Superi went away. But then Javon Bennett from Dayton coming to Gonzaga, that's going to be a big pickup for them. Honestly, in my opinion, the biggest pickup of the offseason up to this point for the Zags. Obviously, they've got plenty of other guys on that team, but I mean, Bennett's going to really bring that roster together. And now you see other programs like Kentucky looking for that 5th-year guy just because of an injunction by Colorado Judge Charlotte Sweeney that, honestly, in my opinion, I don't know if we can fully trust. I think you see the NCAA fighting it right now, and that's because Charlie Baker, the NCAA president, talked earlier about how they weren't going to let these players play. And so now with the recent court injunction, the players are playing. So it's something that I still think is going to continue to keep going on. But I mean, man, at this point, we can't afford that, especially if you're a college football guy. I mean, your season starts in just a few weeks, and you don't know who's going to be on the team tomorrow.
It is so wild what we're seeing, and I'm not sure about you, but in the way that I look at the NCAA, I always say it on this podcast, they are the Washington Generals of the court system, and I think that it seems very resounding that these guys like Archie Godfrey, we talk about MJ Collins, you were bringing up the Gonzaga guys, I think we're going to be seeing all those guys out there on the floor. I know the NCAA is trying to enlist the ghost transfer rule and everything like that. And I don't think they're going to have any power because every time they go to the court system sides with everyone not named the NCAA.
Exactly. Another team I forgot to mention, one team in college basketball that I think is going to benefit from this the most looks to be Texas Tech. I mean, they're going to get 2 or 3 guys back from last year and having Stillwell and so many other players that are going to be eligible for next season. I mean, the Red Raiders were a big question mark for me coming into this year, but at this point, they are not anymore. They're going to get another year of almost all their guys. I think the big targets in the portal right now have to be the guys like Mark Mitchell, Keyshawn Hall, those guys that were great last year for Missouri and Auburn respectively, but now with this extra season, I guess as a guy who's growing up in Kentucky, everyone who grew up in Kentucky, everybody is talking about how Mark Mitchell could be the next Wildcat.
That would be massive. For Mark Mitchell, he was really good over at Missouri, a former top 25 recruit of Duke. We saw what he was able to do for them. And how about if we bring up a few other names as well? Because Isaac Bourne, he does such great work over at Mid-Major Madness. Joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, we mentioned Gonzaga already signing a pair of guys. They're not necessarily the guy that we think that they're targeting, though. Donovan Dent, he entered in the transfer portal with a no-contact tag, but with that injunction that we heard from the Justice Sweeney that you were mentioning a little bit before, it right now says that you had to enter in the transfer portal. And Donovan Dent, he was retired until a few weeks ago. How do you take a look at that situation? Because I think what happens in California, because it's not just Donovan Dent in that case, it's also Jackson Kaler, Braden Carrington. I believe Duke Brandon is a part of that lawsuit as well. Jordan Pope, go down the list. There is a lot of big-time players that are in that lawsuit. And if they win, and if it's decided that you didn't have to enter in the transfer portal before, that's going to be even more talent that's going to be out there for the taking.
And Donovan Dent is such a weird situation. And specifically about him, if we're going to talk personally, I really think Donovan Dent had a pro career in him. And it really stinks that, you know, for the rest of us, it looked like he was kind of going off into the sunset as a guy that was going to go down in history as a talented New Mexico basketball player, then had a decent season last year at UCLA, but was not exactly what he expected, and then retires from the game. Many people thought it was just a mature move by him to move on, but then he decides, hey, let's go get another year of college basketball under my belt, and it just leaves a weird taste in a lot of people's mouth. I don't think anyone expected this to happen, or if they did, they didn't expect it to happen this year. And so now, I mean, it does leave Dent in a weird position. Obviously, with Gonzaga signing Bennett, I do think that is a bit of just in case we don't get Donovan Dent situation. But yeah, it really does have to go down to almost all of these seniors kind of giving a lot of them. I mean, for me at the mid-major level, the big names are like Braxton Stacker at SEMO. Last year, he entered his name into the transfer portal, and I'm thinking, why are all these seniors entering their name in? And I see why. I see now why. It's because now the players that didn't are dealing with the consequences of not putting their name in the portal before the injunction was put out.
Yep, and it is going to be interesting to see how the ruling is going to be for that, because there's a chance that these guys still might be eligible, but as you mentioned, they're right now fighting it right now. Donovan Dent, the biggest of them, so that's going to be an intriguing situation, and it is very fascinating, the teams that have been able to pick up guys. Houston, they bring in Chendell Weaver on Thursday. I feel like that's just a textbook fit for them, but how do you take a look at the landscape of some of these teams that are trying to sign guys? Because I really think the biggest beneficiaries are going to be these teams like a Cincinnati, where MJ Collins, he knew the system of Coach Calhoun. He's now going to be eligible for them. A team like Xavier getting back Philip Borovichinen, who was there last season, because the chemistry is already built in for guys like Collins and Borovichinen, whereas a guy with like a Chendell Weaver, he's naturally going to be able to fit in with Houston, but I still think that there's a little bit of something to be said for the chemistry that you're not going to have if you sign in August, whereas some of these guys that they're just returning to where they came. Braden Carrington might go back to Wisconsin if things go his way with regards to court ruling. I think that those are the guys that might have the biggest impact.
Well, I think the elephant in the room here is, yeah, obviously you want to be able to have chemistry with your teammates, but at this point in college basketball, chemistry is just becoming less and less important. I think this just furthers that initiative just a little bit. I mean, you got to think, maybe if you would have gone back 10 years ago, chemistry would have been such a big deal. Coaches had their systems. They could have players that started off with them their freshman season. Now, as seniors, they can have players for 3-4 years. You could see coaches really start to develop that chemistry with players that have played together for multiple years. But ever since the transfer portal has really started to heat up for the past few years. I mean, chemistry is just becoming less and less important. Talent is starting to become the most important thing in college basketball. So while yes, you would want players to be able to report in June or whenever they have their start in training camp during the summer, I mean, it's really not as big of a deal anymore. But to me, it really just have to make itself apparent when the season starts. And that's kind of where it all is right now. But yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you in the certain sense of, yeah, no one has recruited in August before, unless you are a bad team that hasn't been able to really find
Kansas State with
players.
Coleman Hawkins.
Exactly. It's just like, it just doesn't seem like, it's just one of those things where coaches, their jobs are just getting a little bit more year round. And instead of really focusing on practices, I mean, you're really just diving your face into a computer screen looking for more players. And at this point, coaches were preparing for this. I mean, I'm just looking on the mid-major level. I've been in contact with Brad Korn at SEMO, and I mean, he's left that one open roster spot because of this injunction that could happen.
Yep, and we've seen that with a lot of teams. I mentioned Wisconsin with Braden Carrington. They're another team that is looking at that. Obviously, Gonzaga had a few roster spots open. They've been able to fill those in the past 72 or so hours. So there were a lot of teams that prepared for it. There are a few teams that did not. Kentucky was certainly a team that was hoping and praying that this was going to be coming through as well. So it makes it a really interesting landscape on that front. And you do such great work over at Mid-Major Madness, Isaac. And we've already seen a few teams benefit, like Illinois State is a team that really benefited as well. They get in a double-figure score. That's massive. Pacific, they're going to be a team that benefits as well. Do you think that some of these mid-major teams, even though they might not have the biggest NIL funds in the world, could be teams that really do actually get a little bit of a boost from this? Because even though they might not have the money to be able to shell out, they do have roster spots open. Many of these teams do. And right now, a lot of these guys are clinging on for any sort of basketball that they can get.
And Greg, I think you said it best right there. I mean, the mid-major squads that have just had so much trouble finding players are now going to start to benefit because, like you mentioned, all these other Power 5, Power 4 programs have most of their roster spots filled. Unless you're one of the top guys, you are going to have to go down a level to find a spot. And that makes me really excited to kind of see, especially guards. I think the big thing right now is, I mean, big men are at a premium in the portal. It's a lot of these teams looking for big men, but if you are a talented guard, finding a Power 4 spot is harder than ever right now. So that's where a lot of these programs that don't have the money to shell out, but like you said, have the roster spots, are going to benefit. So I really hope to see a little bit more of that. I will say I am a little bit surprised by the lack of inaction in the portal so far. I mean, they did say that the new portal period started on the 3rd, will end on the 10th. So far, I haven't seen too many mid-major commitments other than the ones that originally were announced early on in this process. I'm hoping to see a few more as this goes on. I think too, I mean, you give these players 1 week, what I'm starting to believe is that a lot of these decisions are going to be made later on. So maybe come talk to me on the 9th or the 10th of the month, and maybe we could have a few more news breaks for you. But for now, I mean, Greg, we all just have to leave it up to these players and just the agencies that they're signed with and see, I mean, what really happens. It's not over yet, but we'll see. Also, I think another thing to mention that we didn't really mention earlier on is that this injunction is only granted to class of 2022 high school graduates, which really does leave those 2021 high school graduates high and dry because they didn't get the COVID year. And also they are not getting this extra 5th year, just kind of an unlucky situation for those guys.
Yep, and it is going to be interesting to see what these new court cases do reveal as well, because if things go the way of the players in California, then we could be looking at a big giant ball of wax there as well. And then are there a few major programs that you're looking at that could actually sign some of these guys? Because we mentioned it, Illinois State, Pacific, there are 2 teams that already stepped up. I know you mentioned Southeast Missouri State because you do a great job covering the OVC. They might be a team that steps up and signs someone, and I feel like they could use that because I think they might be neck and neck with Tennessee State towards the top of that conference. Are there a few programs in general that you're keeping your eye on here in the next few days?
Well, for Southeast Missouri State, I do believe that they have their guy. I don't want to say anything too much yet because I don't want anything to get out if it's incorrect, but I do believe that they have their guy picked out. And so it'll be exciting to see who they sign in the next few days. But In terms of a couple other teams, I think the teams I'm going to really look for are even possibly these lower level mid-majors. The teams that I'm looking at, teams like Western Illinois in the Ohio Valley, but I mean, if we're not going to look in the OVC, I mean, the teams like, maybe Northern Arizona, I'm just picking out random ones at this point. I mean, Louisiana Monroe, also guys like Scott Cross, the head coach there, he's one of the good friend of Mid-Major Madness from UAB,
Yeah.
but a lot of these lower level programs that are finding it hard to fill their roster up just because, I mean, honestly, nobody wants to go play for them. Now people are going to want to play for them. Honestly, the big name schools are already full because people want to go there. So that's why Southeast Missouri State's only got the one name because they were top of the OVC last year.
Yep, exactly. And obviously the one name that we haven't mentioned, LSU, they're certainly going to be signing someone in the next few days. I feel very confident in that because they right now have 4 players on the roster. So they're going to need to sign someone. That's yeah. They're certainly going to be going after someone, and they're probably going to be landing some of these big fish, and they're going to benefit from the fact that they had poor planning in the offseason, in which, yeah, that stinks a little bit. But as you can tell, we didn't focus too much on that. We always like to focus on the good. And Isaac, you do such a good job looking at this great game of college basketball. Let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media to other platforms.
Well, first of all, I got to say, hoping that Amir Khan doesn't have to suit up at point guard for that team. But
they have eligibility. LSU, give me that Canes money, please.
Exactly. Hey, all I need is free canes, man. I don't need any money. Just give me free canes. But anyway, yes, you can find me at Isaac Bourne _ on X or Twitter. You find me at, just my name on Instagram. Also, midmajormadness.com is where you can find all of my work, but also some other great work from some of my other colleagues at Mid Major Madness. Greg, once again, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate just being able to talk basketball, and I hope to be able to talk with you again. OVC stuff is heating up for me. If you ever need someone to come in and talk more about that conference, I got you, man.
Absolutely. Isaac is doing such a great job looking at this amazing game of college basketball. He and everyone else over there at Mid-Major Madness absolutely dialed in. They're keeping track of all that we're getting in a situation where it's hard to keep track of everything in college basketball right now. So appreciate them and appreciate Isaac. Big thanks to him for joining me on Cusco Soups, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Coming up next, we did see a few signings in college basketball on Thursday. I'll recap those next. Inside Edge this college basketball season? Well, VSiN experts use CBB Analytics, the most comprehensive college basketball analytics platform in the world. See injury impact, on and off data, clutch time performance metrics, first versus second half splits, and so much more. Utilize the promo code of VSiN, that is VSIN, to get $30 off and find your betting edge over at cbbanalytics.com. That is cbbanalytics, all one word.com. For anyone that is new to VSiN, well, I wish you a friendly hello. This is an attention to anyone that is new to VSiN because you're able to get some free stuff with our daily newsletter. It's a great way to catch up on everything that's happening in the sports betting world. It's delivered straight to your inbox every single morning. VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, strategies for the day's betting menu, and so much more. Sign up for free today over at VSiN.com/newsletter. That's VSIN.com/newsletter, and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That is VSIN.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Cusco Soups with myself, Greg Peters, and now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always a pleasure to be joined by Isaac Bourne. I know that he's doing such great work over at Mid-Major Madness. He's doing a great job in deciphering what is very, very hard to decipher right now in college basketball. And every single time he joins me, he lends such great insight. So a big thanks to Isaac for joining me in the last segment. And now it is that time of the podcast. I give you a recap of the news and notes that we saw in college basketball over the last 24 hours. We didn't see anything with regards to some of those court cases that are outstanding right now. We are still awaiting what is going to be happening in California, but we did see 2 pieces of news that came out in college basketball on Thursday, with Chendell Weaver deciding that he is going to be going to Houston. Now, was Weaver a guy that absolutely tore it up at Texas? No, but this is just such a good fit for Houston, in my opinion. A Houston team that I was feeling bullish on, but I felt like maybe they could use another piece or two, and this is going to be a very useful piece for them. With Houston, they've got Joseph Tugler back down low. I love De'Don Thomas running the show for them at the point guard spot, and now you got a guy in Weaver that, last year while he was over at Texas, so he's familiar with the state. He was averaging in that neighborhood about 6 points per game. Not necessarily a great three-point shooter last year. He's a career 32% three-point shooter, but a guy that'll pull in their 4 boards, a guy that'll give you a steal per contest, a 6'3" guard that just fits the Houston defensive style. If you're hoping that Houston is going to be a team that scores like 90-plus points per game, you're going up the wrong tree there, but they've already got things fortified down low with bringing in Delreco Gillespie, a double-double machine from Kent State last season. They get that three-point shooting out of Corey Hednott, who's going to be coming over from Fort Wayne. Chase McCarty is a guy that I'm pretty bullish on this season as well, so being able to bring in a guy like a Weaver, who I thought they just needed another guard to go with De'Don Thomas. Thomas is going to do a nice job in terms of being that do-everything sort of guard, but you need a little bit of a defensive stopper, a guy that is going to be able to grab you some boards, even though you might be a guard as well. I think that this is perfect for Houston, and Gonzaga is officially on a spending spree, ladies and gentlemen. They want the Pac-12 very badly, and we saw them 24 hours ago bring in Javon Bennett. Now they add another piece, and this came out very late in the night on Thursday, right around about, I would say, 9:30, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, but they bring in Chauncey Wiggins, who was a very solid player when he was over at both Clemson and Florida State. When he was over at Clemson, he was a little bit more of a role player, which I think he might be more here with Gonzaga because they're going to be centering that offense around Braden Huff. But for Wiggins last year, at 6'10" at Florida State, shot 38.5% from 3, 13.5 points per game, 4 rebounds per contest. They could maybe use him to be a little bit stronger on the glass, but a guy that is certainly going to be spacing the floor, a guy that knows how to play in an up-tempo system with Florida State. As we know, Gonzaga last year, especially when Braden Huff was down, they just weren't necessarily the same offense, and I did have a few questions with Davis Vogel. In a small sample size, he was tremendous when he was more of a low-usage sort of player. When his usage went up and up and up, you could tell that the three-point shooting went down a little bit. This should take the pressure off of him a little bit for Gonzaga. You've got now just even more depth with the team as well because of Mario Saint-Sapri news. That was rough. We'll still see if Donovan Dent is going to be going over there or not. I believe they still have a roster spot available. I could be mistaken there, but if so, Gonzaga, they are very much set up for success. I'm feeling very good about Luka Foster being able to give this team something in the backcourt as well. You've also got Masama Diop, who's absolutely going to be dominating things down low, a 7-foot big man that had himself a really nice year last year over at Arizona State. So I'm feeling great about the moves that Gonzaga is making and feeling great about the fact that this will be the greatest college basketball season of all time. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Cuz Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one or two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at Junit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter. So, as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. And I am very much with you guys every single day on this podcast, over 2,440 straight days without a missed podcast. So, you know what to expect there. We're going to have great guests like we had our good buddy and Isaac Bourne on today. We're going to be having the Ohio Valley Conference Preview podcast up within the next 48 or so hours, so be on the lookout there. And once we're back in season picks and analysis on every single game, every single day. So I appreciate you tuning in today. I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.